So the first thanks would have to go to Liv Hansen, who is our amazing content specialist for children's services here at Chicago Public Library. She just knows so much about everything that has been published lately and the history of children's literature. If you need a recommendation and ask her for something, she'll come up with 10 things immediately right off the bat, and they'll all be amazing. We're very lucky to have her. But she's the one who does the bulk of the work, putting together the committees that come up with these lists and the criteria for selection on these lists. And I also really want to thank Josh Farnham from my team, who has done all the organizing to make our meetings happen for the next 2 days. So also a huge undertaking in terms of logistics. So Josh, I really appreciate that. So thank you all for being here. And I'm just so lucky to work with all of you. And for those of you who are on the committees, thank you for all your reading and your hard work to make this most wonderful time of the year happen for the rest of us to learn about all the great new books that we're going to hear about today. I'm going to hand it off to Liv.
Oh, thank you so much, Shelley. Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge all of the evaluators whose hard work and expertise shaped the lists we're sharing today. So if you could just give a big round of applause for them. And also to Children's Services and Family Engagement for making today's presentations possible. Thank you also to everyone who nominated a title for consideration this year and to everyone who's joining us today. As many of you know, creating our kids' best of the best lists is a year-long process. Any book purchased by CPL published from December 1st of the previous calendar year through the current calendar year is eligible for consideration. We prioritize reading books with local connections, be it setting, author, or local press, and books that are recommended by you. In 2021, our dedicated team of evaluators read and reviewed 450 books to create these lists. So what made the books we're discussing today stand out? A Chicago Public Library Best of the Best book. 1, reflects living in an urban multicultural society. 2, addresses a significant curriculum or collection need. 3, meets high standards of writing and illustration. 4, provides an innovative approach to topics for a youth audience. And 5, adds excitement to programs and special projects. We do our best to reflect Chicago and Chicagoans. Let the book talks begin.
We're starting today with picture books, board books, and picture books and board books published in Spanish.
So the Me I Choose to Be by Natasha Anastasia Tarpley with art by Regis and Karen Betancourt. Utilizing lyrical text and primarily Afrofuturistic photographs of children of various skin tones in this book, Chicago author and Atlanta photographers celebrate the potential of Black and brown children everywhere. From being a planet in a limitless galaxy to having creativity and curiosity flowing without end, these children will inspire their peers to accomplish anything that they put their minds to. This book, paired with 2020's Best of the Best, All Because You Matter by Tammy Charles, is ideal for caregivers and teachers looking to help their Black and brown children or students develop self-confidence and individuality. This book has been chosen by the American Library Association as the 2022 Coretta Scott King John Steptoe New Talent Illustrator Award.
Bodies Are Cool by Tyler Fetter. Kids are naturally curious about people who look different than they do. Chicago area author-illustrator Tyler Fetter shares this joyful look at how all bodies, with so many varied physical attributes, are cool. From skin color, body hair, and legs, to eyes, tummies, and scars, this body-positive picture book proudly proclaims that all bodies are good bodies. There are so many wonderful details to notice in the bold and energetic illustrations. I particularly enjoy that the author also includes so many other types of diversity, including age, race, religion, gender identity, disability, and more, showing appreciation and love for not just bodies, but for all people and the many amazing ways they identify themselves. Truly a book for all of us. Laxmi's Mooch by Shelley Anand, illustrated by Nabi H. Ali. As they are pretending to be animals at recess one day, Lakshmi's friend Zoe says she would make a perfect cat because of the little hairs above her lip, like a cat's whiskers. Lakshmi feels embarrassed and imagines that everyone is meowing at her all day. Even worse, she starts to notice hair all over her body. At home, her parents reassure Lakshmi that her mooch, which is in Hindi for mustache, and her other body hair are part of her Indian heritage, following generations of strong women with hair on their faces and bodies. The next day, Lakshmi shares her newfound pride in her mooch with her classmates and helps them enjoy their own mooches, whether real or drawn. This is another gorgeously illustrated picture book that empowers readers to see their beauty just as they are, with no need to change themselves. Eyes That Kiss in the Corners by Joanna Ho, illustrated by Zong Ho. A young Taiwanese American girl notices that some people have big eyes with long lashes, but she does not. She has eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea. By seeing how her eyes reflect her mother's, grandmother's, and little sister's eyes, she comes to see her own beauty. The illustrations practically glow with sumptuously saturated color and a floral motif that flows through the pages. In an interview, author Joanna Ho said, "I hope readers recognize they don't need to fit a narrow, unrealistic definition of beauty to be beautiful. That learning to recognize our beauty in a world that tells us opposing messages is truly an act of resistance and revolution."
Stella's Stellar Hair by Yesenia Moises. Today of all days, the day of the big star little gala, Stella's hair just won't act right. It's twisting and turning, zigging and zagging and making loopity-loops and lots of curly cues, which is not at all what she wanted. So she does what any of us would do. She jumps on her hoverboard to see if her aunties can help. Auntie Alma on Venus suggests a royal lion's mane, while Aunt Roby on Mars suggests a classy updo. It is Auntie Solana, who lives on the sun, who reminds her that sometimes your hair just wants to have a little fun. Moises unites a vibrant, futuristic space adventure with an empowering celebration of the versatility of Black hair, and engages the reader's imagination even further with back matter dedicated to explaining how each hairstyle might be appropriate for each extraterrestrial environment.
What I Am by Divya Srinivasan. A stranger in a public restroom once asked the author's sister, "What are you?" This rude and uncomfortable encounter stuck with her. In this book, a spunky young girl answers that question in ways that are factual. I am a girl. I am a human. I am a human animal. And often contradictory but true. I am dark. I am pale. I am selfish. I am generous. I am a scaredy cat. I am brave. I am mean. I am kind. This deceptively simple exploration of a child's sense of self reminds us that no one is easily defined. We could all use a reminder to embrace our contradictions. They are what make us each unique human animals. Pair this with books about identity like You Matter by Christian Robinson or I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Or use this as a new way to talk about opposites or as a writing or drawing prompt for kids.
Jenny Mei Is Sad by Tracy Subisak. While the book never explicitly tells us why Jenny Mei is sad, the mostly watercolor and ink illustrations leave us some clues. And even though Jenny Mei is sad, she still smiles. And she likes to make everyone laugh. But some days are tougher. Being sad is hard. Underneath the simple text, you'll find a depiction of childhood sadness that is surprisingly intricate. This moving story supports social emotional learning by making space for children to experience their emotions while showing us all how to be a good friend to someone who is struggling. It can help to just be there for the fun, the not fun, and everything in between. Because after all, that's what friends are for.
Don't hug Doug. He doesn't like it. By Carrie Finnison, illustrated by Daniel Weissman. You can hug a pug. Slide, please. You can hug a pug. You can hug a bug. You can even hug a slug. Slide, please. But do not hug Doug. He doesn't like it. Don't worry, it's not that Doug doesn't like you. He doesn't like hugs. They are too squeezy, too squashy, too squishy, too smushy. There is only one person that Doug will hug, and that is his mom. She gives the perfect hugs. So unless you are his mom, no hugs, please. Although he will not hug, he is a master at high fives, and he will high five with everyone, including you. This is a great book to use when teaching children about personal space, and it can be paired with Can I Give You a Squish by Emily Nielsen and Hug by Charlene Chua.
Norman Didn't Do It. Yes, He Did by Ryan T. Higgins. Norman is a porcupine who is best friends with a tree named Mildred. They do everything together, just the two of them, and life is perfect. Until one day, there was someone else. A new tree. And who is that? Norman couldn't lose his best friend. Something had to be done. So Norman takes care of the tree, dun, dun, dun. But then his guilt begins to eat away at him. From the author of the Mother Bruce series, this is a very funny exploration of feelings of jealousy, friendship, and making amends. And now, another title about furry friends making amends, Best Day Ever by Marilyn Singer, illustrated by Leah Nixon. Wake up and it's going to be the best day ever. After breakfast, time to dig, got a special box, find a bone, a tennis ball, and some dirty socks. Best day ever. But then the dog gets into something smelly. Quickly jump on my best friend. He begins to yell, down, girl, you get off me. Phewy, what's that smell? Now it's become the worst day ever. Will the day turn around? This story of unconditional love reminds us that even though the best days can turn bad, everything will still be okay. Although it's not a plot point in the story, the pup's human best friend uses a wheelchair, just like debut illustrator Leah Nixon.
Dumplings for Lili by Melissa E.Y. Lili and her nai are making bao together, but they're missing the cabbage they need to line their steamer basket. Their sixth-floor neighbor, Babcia, grandmother in Polish, to the rescue. But she was just getting started on her pierogi when she realized her potatoes have sprouted. It turns out all of Lili's neighbors in her 6-story apartment building are making a culturally specific stuffed treat. Along with Lili and Nai's bao, her neighbor Abuela is making tamales and grandma is making beef patties. Yum. Everyone is missing an important ingredient though, and Lili is here to help. She runs up and down the stairs to gather all the necessary ingredients and relates the adventure to Nai with this helpful diagram. The story ends with a celebratory feast to welcome Lili's new baby brother. Kids might recognize the special community apartment living can foster, the many different words for grandmother, and all of the different foods mentioned. I recommend pairing this book with one or all of the treats mentioned in the text. You can find them all right here in Chicago.
And if you weren't hungry after that one, you will be after this title, Tomatoes for Neela by Padma Laxmi, illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal. Neela loves cooking with her mother in their big warm kitchen where her grandmother's portrait hangs on the wall. Their kitchen is always bursting with the most flavorful dishes and aromatic smells, from ramen and dosas to sweet mango pudding. Neela's mother tells her how each dish is made using grandmother's recipe book. On Saturday, Neela and Amma go to the green market to buy the vegetable Neela loves cooking best, tomatoes. Together, Neela and Amma make a sauce using a recipe passed down from her grandmother. As they cook, Neela learns about the history and use of tomatoes and the value of eating food when it's in season. A perfect pairing for Dumplings for Lili. The end of this book includes recipes for tomato sauce and tomato chutney, as well as tomato fun facts, resources on farm workers, and an author's note.
Thanks, Katie. I'm hungry. Watercress by Andrea Wang and illustrated by Jason Chen. In a heavy palette of yellow ochre and cerulean blue watercolor illustrations, the simple story for older children depicts a modern-day setting of a Chinese family in Ohio stopping along the road to pick watercress to eat at dinner, much to the shame of the family's daughter. Interspersed throughout the depictions of the modern day are depictions of the past, when the mother's family suffered and lost a loved one during the China famine, when all they could eat was what they could find, including watercress. After hearing this story and changing her attitude about the watercress, this poignant story provides the daughter and readers an important lesson in understanding our cultures and the cultures of others around us. Check out this 2022 Caldecott winner.
Our next title is also an award winner, Soul Food Sunday by Winsome Bingham with illustrations by C.G. Esperanza. It's Sunday, and that means everyone gathers at Granny's for soul food. And this Sunday, I get to help. I grate the cheese, clean the greens, and prep the meat, because it's not Soul Food Sunday without mac and cheese, greens, and chicken ribs. But one thing is still missing: the iced tea, because unless sweet tea is on the table, it's not Soul Food Sunday. Inspired by the author and illustrator's own families, Soul Food Sunday celebrates food and family, and even includes a recipe for mac and cheese. Our final food-themed book is Saturdays at the Food Pantry by Diana O'Neill with illustrations by Brizada Margro. Molly and her mom have been struggling since mom lost her job, but today is Saturday, which means a trip to the food pantry. Molly helps mom pick out essentials like bread, peaches, and milk, and even gets a box of cookies to share with a new friend, because sometimes everybody needs a little help.
This year we have selected 4 board books in English. 1, 2, 3 Cats, written by Leslie Newman, illustrated by Isabella Kang. A Cub Story by Allison Farrell, illustrated by Kristen Tracy. Monster Food by Daisy Hurst, and My Heartbeats by Reena Singh. 1, 2, 3 Cats is a simple counting book that adds 1 cat, 2 cats, 3 cats, until we get 12 cats, where we can count all of the cats on one spread. A Cub Story shares the life of a bear cub. The story also explores basic concepts like a lot or a little, and above and below, as well as the seasons. Monster Food is a playful book that shares what monsters might like to eat, like peaches, pears, noodles, stew, and even shoes, by using bright colors and not very scary monsters. And My Heartbeat uses photographs of babies from all over the world to tell us how the sound of a beating heart sounds in different languages. All 4 books use limited words, simple language, and lots of white space, which makes them perfect for babies.
The Lost Package by Richard Ho, illustrated by Jessica Lannon. Follow a package sent with care from New York City to San Francisco on its journey through the US postal system as it's stamped, sorted, loaded onto a truck, and unfortunately lost. Until it's found by a kind stranger who happens to be moving to San Francisco and takes the time to deliver it in person, along with a newfound friendship. Pair this lovely story of kindness and coincidence with others like Snail Mail by Samantha Berger or The Giant Hug by Sandra Horning for a sweet story time about mail and friendship.
The Longest Storm by Dan Yacarino. One day it starts to rain so much that no one can go outside. Slide, please. A family of 4 is now forced to spend all day, every day together, and things don't go well. They fight, get on each other's nerves, and eventually decide that they can't get along together. They decide to spend their time apart. Everyone is doing their own thing. As they get ready for bed one day, the powerful storm scares them, and they realize that they need each other to get through the tough night. After that, they start to do things together again. And although they fight at times, most of the time they enjoy each other. When the rain finally stops and it's time to clean up, they do it together. Although the book is talking about a storm, it parallels the isolation that COVID made us feel. And it's a great book to help discuss how the last 2 years have affected us. It is a great book to pair with Keeping the City Going by Brian Foka. And the next on our best of the best list, the title Outside Inside by Lili Pham.
Something strange happened on an unremarkable day just before the season changed. Everyone who was outside went inside. Everyone, everywhere, all over the world. The Yun Fan's Outside Inside uses words and pictures to explain the events of 2020 and the COVID pandemic to our youngest readers. From what we did while we were stayed inside to who couldn't stay inside, as well as the many whys. The book also offers hope for a brighter future and reminds us that even though on the outside we are all different, on the inside we are all the same.
Milo Imagines the World by Matt de la Pena, illustrated by Christian Robinson. As Milo and his big sister take their monthly Sunday subway ride, he imagines in his sketchbook the lives of the people around him on the train. In Milo's sketchbook, the wedding-dressed woman is headed to a grand cathedral ceremony where her new husband will whisk her away in a hot air balloon. And in Milo's sketchbook, the boy in the suit and shiny white sneakers who just boarded the train is headed home in a horse-drawn carriage to his castle with servants. Milo is a shook-up soda of excitement and worry as he exits the train with his sister and is surprised to see the boy in the suit from the train, a few paces ahead, also joining the long line to pass through the metal detector to visit someone he loves. As Milo rushes to give his mom a hug at their monthly visit and hand her the drawing he made for her, it occurs to him that maybe you can't really know anyone just by looking at their face, and he reimagines all the pictures he made of the strangers on the train. The award-winning team that brought us Last Stop on Market Street has done it again with this beautiful story of identity, art, and perception that will be a timely conversation starter and will ring true to the many families we serve who have a loved one who is incarcerated. This title is also available in Spanish as Milo Imagina el Mundo.
Magic Candies by Hina Beek, translated by Sophie Bowman. In Magic Candies, Tong Tong's a pretty lonely kid, but if you asked, he'd tell you he was fine playing marbles by himself. One day at the corner store, he comes across a pack of 6 marble-looking candies. After trying the first, he's shocked to discover that he can now understand the couch. He finds the missing remote and learns that the couch does not appreciate it when his dad passes gas while sitting on it. Next, he tries the brown and white spotted marble, and now he can understand his pet dog. With every candy he eats, Tong Tong is able to hear things no one else can, and by listening, he comes to understand them better. Finally, there's a single candy left. It's clear as glass. What does that mean? Illustrated using photographs of clay models, Magic Candies offers a ton of extension opportunities. Make predictions as you read about what Tong Tong will hear next. Choose an object and think about what it might say if it could talk, or play with clay and Play-Doh to create your own sculptures inspired by the illustrations. Don't miss this unusual title.
Strollercoaster by Matt Ringer, illustrated by Raoul III and Elaine Bay. Being inside is just too much for Sam, and her father has the perfect solution. It is time to go for a ride on the stroller coaster. With Sam strapped in, they are off. They visit every corner of the neighborhood, going up and down hills so fast that Sam feels like she's flying. She can't get enough of her amazing neighborhood until the ride is over and they return home for a much needed nap. This is a great book to use when talking about neighborhoods and how we experience them. And it can be paired with My Papi Has a Motorcycle by Isabel Quintero and My City Speaks by Darren LaBeouf and Ashley Barron.
Do you remember the first time you were old enough to get yourself to school? Maybe you were finally allowed to take the bus by yourself or cross the street alone. In My First Day by Phuong Nguyen Quan and Huynh Lien Kim, we join An, a young Vietnamese boy, as he sets out on his own for the first time across the Mekong Delta for his first day of school. And what an adventure it is. Lyrical metaphors weave images of classroom staples like crayons and blackboards through the text, along with gorgeous, epic two-page spreads, together telling the story not only of the journey itself, but of the feeling of taking on a new responsibility for the very first time. It can be scary, but what you know can turn the unfamiliar into family. And suddenly, things aren't so scary at all. My First Day is a great entry point into a discussion about school experiences in other countries. Kids will relate to An as he encounters and overcomes obstacles on his way to school and celebrate with him when at last the journey has ended.
Strange Planet, The Sneaking, Hiding, Vibrating Creature by Nathan W. Pyle. Imagine you discovered an alien creature from across the universe in your house. How would you describe it to other people? Cartoonist Nathan W. Pyle's large-eyed alien characters use vocabulary in unexpected ways to describe everyday objects and activities as they record their observations of a vibrating creature, what we call a cat. Readers will delight in figuring out what the aliens mean by crisscross floppers, flavor muscle, and death blades, and laugh out loud at the simple but effective illustrations. A playful way to introduce the concept of scientific observation with cat jokes.
A Sled for Gabo by Emma Othai, illustrated by Ana Ramirez Gonzalez. This sweet story centers on a Latinx family and touches on issues of poverty. Gabo walks into the kitchen when he sees children from his new school sledding outside. Gabo very much wants to join them, but his hat is too small. His socks are cotton, not wool, and his shoes are not waterproof. And he doesn't have a sled. Gabo's mom helps out, and with his dad's hat, 4 pairs of socks, and plastic bags over his sneakers, he's ready to go outside. Gabo comes across different neighbors and family members in his community, and he eventually makes a new friend who is good at thinking outside the box and teaches him that a cafeteria tray can be a sled with a little imagination. The big expressions on Gabo's face will be easy for younger readers to identify and relate to what he's feeling across his journey. A Sled for Gabo is a perfect winter story and is available in English and in Spanish.
Indigenous creators Tasha Spillett Sumner and Michaela Goad celebrate the bond between mother and child in I Sang You Down from the Stars. Even before they are born, a mother gathers items to welcome her child into her womb and her heart. A feather for beauty, sage to keep their spirits strong, a stone to carry the stories of the land, and a blanket to keep them safe and warm. With this sacred medicine bundle, the child is connected to their identity, their traditional territory, and their community. This award-winning title is a beautiful way to welcome a new child into any family.
In My Mosque by Immo Yoksel and illustrated by Hatim Ali. A Muslim child's perspective of the activities that are conducted when at a mosque is detailed in this wonderfully illustrated title. From the Imam tells us stories of living in harmony to the Muezzin's melodious call to prayer, the reader learns about ritual practices that happen at the mosque. Included at the book's end is a note about mosques, a glossary of Arabic terms used in a story, and a list and description of the world's famous and historic mosques. Readers looking to introduce the Islamic culture to their child would greatly benefit from this beautiful book, as well as young Islamic children who deserve representation in literature.
No Pants by Jacob Grant. Today is party day, and Pablo and Dad are getting ready. Breakfast has been eaten, teeth have been brushed, the potty has been used, and hands have been washed. And now to get dressed. No pants, declares Pablo. And thus begins the kind of morning many parents will recognize, filled with frustration, silliness, counter-arguments, new perspectives, and ultimately the realization that not every party requires pants. Pair this delightful book with others about kids getting dressed, or not, like Underwear by Jen Harney or Ella Sarah Gets Dressed by Margaret Chodos Irvine.
My favorite book on this list is Pride Puppy by Robin Stevenson and illustrated by Julie McLaughlin. First slide, please. This fabulous, beautifully illustrated alphabet book details the attendance of a queer family, including their puppy, at the Pride Parade. When the family's oldest child falls and skins a knee, the puppy escapes and takes its own trip through the parade route until finally reunited with the family at the end. This joyful, full of pride read uses the alphabet to tell this parade story, such as F for feathers, flags, and for fun, and Q for queen in a beautiful dress. On each letter's respective page, the gorgeous illustrations provide a search and find other objects that begin with that letter, while also representing every gender and queer identity at the parade. A perfect choice for teachers and caregivers looking for alphabet books, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility materials to share with their children or students.
What do we mean when we say Black Lives Matter? And how do we explain it to our children? Maxine Beniba Clark tackles this question in this loving poem from parent to child. In her own words, when we say Black Lives Matter, we're saying Black people are wonderful, strong. We deserve to be treated with basic respect, and that history's done us wrong. And while there's no denying that trouble still stalks to this day, fear will not destroy our joy. This book offers an honest perspective that embraces a hopeful tone without shying away from tough subjects. The message at the end reminds our children that the future is theirs to claim.
Someone Builds the Dream by Lisa Wheeler, illustrated by Lauren Long. This book is a celebration of workers in many different jobs. While recognizing the roles of architects, engineers, designers, scientists, and the like, the author's note makes clear this book is focused on the contributions of tradespeople and skilled laborers like carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and steelworkers. Lisa Wheeler's rhyming text encourages readers to think about all the workers involved in building and creating all the things around them, from a bridge you cross to the book in your hands. Lauren Long's detailed and vibrant illustrations clearly show the physical effort involved in the work of building dreams. This book would work well in a classroom's exploration of careers or community helpers. It would also work well in a story time celebrating Labor Day.
Okay, and the following best of the best books are Libros en español. Amor, pelo by Matthew A. Cherry, illustrated by Vashti Harrison. Suri doesn't know what to do with her hair. Her hair has a life of its own. Mom is away, but dad comes to the rescue. Although he does not know what he's doing, he tries to create a beautiful hairstyle for his daughter. She tries hairstyle after hairstyle, but is not happy with any of them. Working together, Dad and Suri eventually find the perfect hairstyle for such an important day. Inspired by Cherry's animated short film celebrating African-American hair, this story not only celebrates the relationship between father and daughter, but it also showcases how special and versatile curly hair can be. This book is perfect for any story time that focuses on empowerment, confidence, natural beauty, and the love between a father and his daughter.
De aquí como el coquí, or Coquí in the City, written and illustrated by Nomar Perez. Miguel and his frog, or coquí, take readers on a walk through the Puerto Rican city of San Juan, taking in a palette of bright facades, bustling sounds, lush greenery, and stops to familiar places with familiar faces. Slide, please. Miguel loves everything about his city, especially at night when the coquí lulls him to sleep. One day, Miguel learns that he and his parents are moving to New York City and worries about this major change. Once in the Big Apple, Miguel is overwhelmed and homesick. To take his mind off his worries, Miguel's mother takes him on a walk, where Miguel notices familiar places with familiar sounds, such as the sounds of the Spanish language and the ruckus of the big city. To his pleasant surprise, Miguel happens upon his favorite sight and sound, the coquí, feeling at home once again. Finding more similarities than differences in his new hometown, Miguel learns that home is where the coquí is. A good book for young readers about navigating change. We give this one a ribbit of approval.
Corre, pequeño, Chaski, Una aventura en el camino Inca by Mariana Llanos, illustrated by Mariana Ruiz Johnson, and it's also in English under Run Little Chaski. Did you know that the Inca Empire had its own mailing system? Little Chaski, the messenger boy, had proved that he was apt for the role. His mission to run and deliver the royal message before sundown gets interrupted by a chinchilla, alcu, a Peruvian hairless dog, and a condor. Should he stop to help these animals, or should he stick to his mission and head straight to the king? Little Chaski decides that being kind and helpful is best. He will take you on an adventure throughout the Inca Empire of Peru and highlight the important role of the messengers. This book contains bold and colorful Peruvian folklore, Quechua words, a glossary, and additional information describing the Inca Empire and culture. We also learn about their respect towards their native land and about the creatures found throughout the book. This book is not only educational, but entertaining for all of our little ones. Ojalá, supieras, I Wish You Knew by Jackie Asua Kramer, illustrated by Magdalena Mora. Estrella's father has been deported. Going to school, she remembers her father and the garden he helped build full of girasoles, yellow sunflowers. She wishes he knew how much she misses him. She wishes her classmates knew that she eats by herself at lunchtime and cries for little things because she misses her dad. But school is her happy place. The school garden is her safe space. Knowing this, Estrella's teacher creates a sharing circle in the school's garden where her classmates share what they wish they knew of each other. One of her classmates is hungry. The other is a refugee, while another classmate has not seen her mother for months because she's in the military. This story highlights deportation along with other heartbreaking situations that students have to deal with in their everyday lives. Students were provided with a safe space, but were encouraged to share their feelings and their why. The colorful pastel and digital illustrations give a sense of hope, knowing that when a community comes together, even in a classroom setting, with empathy, understanding, and hope, no one is alone. Una piedra inmóvil by Brendan Wenzel. Have you ever stopped to think about what the life of a stone is like? The animals that it encounters or the time periods it has lived through? In this story, we learn how a stone that is often overlooked can be an impactful and an important part of life depending on the perspective of each animal. A stone can be dark, bright, a hill, or even a wave. With this book, not only will children be encouraged to think about nature, but they would also be encouraged to think about how each animal perceives the stone. The illustrations focus on the concept of perspective, sizing, colors, and even opposites. This book will be a great read before or after a nature walk, where children can be encouraged to think about the importance of even the simplest natural objects.
Sábado, written and illustrated by Ogen Mora. Slide, please. Saturday is a special day. There's a lot to look forward to, as Ava and her mom will spend the whole day doing their usual fun activities together, like going to the library for story time, getting a hairdo at the salon, enjoying a peaceful stroll through the park, and going to the puppet theater. Once they are out the door, however, things do not go as planned, and their special day almost ruined. Story time is canceled, their new hairdos are hair don'ts. A peaceful day at the park is too noisy. An opportunity to see the best puppet show ever is lost. But is it really all ruined? After a few unexpected mishaps, Ava and her mom learned to make the best out of their special day, knowing that Saturday is already special because they are together. Ogen Mora's bold and eye-catching illustrations take us on a city adventure in this story where the overall message is that it's okay to be disappointed when things do not go as planned. It's the quality time that counts. Yefferson, actually, en realidad es Yefferson. This is by Catherine Trejo and Scott and Martin Rowe, and illustrated by Carla Monterosa. Slide. What's in a name? He whom we'll call Yefferson will take no other pronunciation, and this is what makes him oh so sweet. Yefferson, actually, en realidad es Yefferson, is an endearing story with a message of empowerment for young readers. Yefferson, proudly named after his grandfather, Papa Yefferson, is a new kid at school. In his classroom, Jefferson's teacher introduces him as Jefferson, causing Jefferson to pause. Not quite sure how to correct her, Jefferson stays silent. He remained so all day, being called Jefferson at lunch, in class, and during recess. What could he do? Oh, you can say it's the previous slide, I'm sorry. After school, Jefferson discusses the ordeal with his parents and grandfather, and with their help discovers he had the words to correct everyone all along. The next day at school, Jefferson takes the opportunity to say, "It's Jefferson, actually," and learns that it's okay to correct the mispronunciation of his name, especially while making new friends. Reading like a short comic with Monterosa's lively illustrations, Trejo and Martin Rowe give young readers a story that celebrates diversity while sending the message that it's okay to speak up and be proud of having a unique name.
Great, thank you all so much. That concludes the picture book portion of this presentation. We're gonna swap screen shares and move on to the fiction for younger readers.
Wonderful. Well, we'll jump in with our first title here, Little Witch Hazel. And I can't think of a better way to welcome in a new year than with the wonderful little witch Hazel and her vibrant little world. There are 4 stories that go over each of the seasons, for spring, summer, autumn, and winter. It's lavishly illustrated and written, and Hazel's simple, gentle adventures. They're never dull, but they don't get too scary either. In The Haunted Stump, mysterious wailing turns out to just be a very lonely little troll. And throughout the book, the theme of community is key. Hazel's community, might be little, and it might include fairies and owls and trolls, but really it's just like ours. Through adventures and shared meals, foul weather and fare, we're all in this together. Introducing Sato. One day, Hanaru Sato became a rabbit, and he's been a rabbit ever since. If you've ever had a dream that was so vivid and surreal that you can still recall what you saw and felt in that dream, then you already know what the world of Sato the Rabbit is like. It's spare and playful prose, translated from the original Japanese. Sato explores his magical world. A walnut shell might contain a tiny spread of breads and coffee, or a bed and a bath. Or you might be able to open a puddle and discover a window into the sky. In one story, I love this, Sato takes a bite of watermelon and suddenly he's riding a giant watermelon boat on the sea. And young ones will absolutely relate to the way Sato, calm and curious, follows wherever his imagination leads. This book just earned a Bachelor honor for outstanding children's books originally published in a language other than English.
Mel Fell by Corey R. Tabor, now a Caldecott honor title. One day when Mama is out of the nest, Mel, a colorful little bird, decides it's time to fly. Her siblings are scared, as is she, but she is even more determined. There is suspense and plenty of laughs as the other residents of the tree frantically and unsuccessfully try to save her. Mel calmly falls until one small moment of not panic, but perhaps trepidation or even just a sudden awareness that this is about to get real. Readers fall through the pages along with Mel due to the creative book design. Luckily, Mel is a special bird who knows just what she's doing, with a very satisfying end to the tale. Side note, I love the overconfident snail who thinks he can save both Mel and the fish when it falls. It includes a great author's note explaining the real life reasons for Mel's adventure. Hello, Hedgehog, Let's Go Swimming by Norm Footy. On a hot day, Hedgehog decides to stay cool by going swimming with his friend Harry. Does he remember everything he needs? Hedgehog is excited to play Dive for Treasure, but Harry makes up excuse after excuse when he realizes he will have to put his face in the water. With some friendly pointers and gentle encouragement from Hedgehog, Harry discovers something on his first try. Inspired by his exciting find, Harry then makes a treasure map that sends Hedgehog on a fun search. How perfect that at the end of the map, they both get to savor a special treat and their time together. In just 3 short chapters, the mutual enjoyment of their friendship is evident in this fun pair. Excellent connection to social emotional learning in library programs and classrooms alike. Includes a quick you can draw tutorial from the cartoonist creator, Norm Foote.
Some beginning reader books are deceptively complex. Don't let simple text and illustrations make you miss this innovative Nothing Fits a Dinosaur by Jonathan Bensky. Mama asks for no dino drama after bath time, but one little boy with a big imagination realizes that finding jammies is a chore when nothing fits a dinosaur. He tries to problem solve in some creative ways, using 2 sleeping bags for pants, pillowcases for socks, and much more, until Mamasaurus roars, "No more playtime! That is it!" And the little boy turns back into a human for bedtime. This is an excellent book to share with readers just beginning to read independently. The rhyming text and illustrations can help make discoveries about new vocabulary. I really love the innovative use of shadows in the illustrations. Even when our narrator is a boy, his shadow is a dinosaur outline. Share this 2022 Geisel Honor book at bedtime, bath time, or at dino time.
Fish and Sun by Sergio Ruzier. Fish and Sun is a story about budding, if unlikely, friendship between fish and sun. Fish feels bored in the gloomy depths of the water. Until one day, Fish swims to the surface and meets Sun. Sun brings warmth, light, and fun to Fish's world. They play a game of hide and seek behind the clouds and show off tricks like spitting out water. At the end of the day, Sun starts to set and they must part ways. This leaves Fish worried and sad until they eventually meet again. This book is a great introduction to comics for your very beginning readers. Use this book to teach them about comic basics like speaking word bubbles and narrative dialogue, and even about the mixed emotions that often come with friendship. El Toro and Friends, Tag Team and Training Day by Raul III. Follow El Toro, the luchador, and his friends as he aspires to be the wrestling champion of the world, El Campeón del Mundo, in this colorful new bilingual series by Raul III. You'll find yourself stumbling over the bold visuals, running home to tell all your friends about what's happening at El Coliseo, and maybe even finding yourself a super fan of El Toro and Friends as they pow their way onto your reading list. These dynamic books are great for younger, super young fans of graphic novels, or even for those who are bilingual Spanish speakers or maybe hoping to be. If you can't get enough of these stunning visuals, be sure to also check out Raul III, the World of Vamos picture book series.
We got Bert the Beetle Doesn't Bite. Insects have some amazing superpowers, right? Like a termite that can spray a venom that paralyzes the enemy, or ants, they can lift up to 50 times their own weight. Now, Bert there, who's a 10-lined June beetle, really wishes he also had some awesome claim to fame, but he keeps drawing a blank. Don't worry, in the end, Bert saves the day in a very unique way. And throughout, readers will find a ton of cool facts about insects and a whole lot of laughs.
Fox at Night by Corey R. Tabor. This is a Geisel winner. Fox is camping. It's time for bed, but creepy shadows and sounds are keeping him awake. What if it's monsters? Fox leaves his tent to investigate. Follow Fox as he meets bats, raccoons, and other nocturnal creatures, and maybe even a cute little monster. Fox at Night is slightly stemmy, slightly spooky fun for beginning readers.
The Doll in the Hall and Other Scary Stories by Max Breyer, illustrated by Letizia Rubini. Want to hear a scary story? Imagine, if you will, indulge me, that you're sitting around a campfire at night, or maybe you're snuggled under the covers of the flashlight and settle in. The Doll in the Hall. Mia was babysitting for the first time. She fed the Clark children dinner. They watched a scary movie. Then she put the kids to bed. Mia tiptoed back downstairs by herself. That's when Mia first felt afraid. She was not afraid because the big house sat alone at the end of a long road. She was not afraid because the wind was blowing through the trees. The wind sounded like laughter. Hee 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 hee. But the sound was not the thing that scared Mia. The thing that scared Mia was something she had not seen before. It was a life-sized doll. It sat in a chair at the end of the hall. The doll's eyes seemed to follow Mia. Its smile looked more mean than sweet, and the dirt on its old clothes smelled fresh. Ring! Mia jumped. The phone was loud in a quiet house. She grabbed the phone. Oh, it was Mr. Clark. He was checking in. Everything is fine, Mia whispered. She paused. She heard her own breathing in the phone. Mr. Clark, would you mind if I covered up that doll in the hallway? She asked. Mr. Clark did not answer right away. Then he spoke very slowly. He said, Mia, we don't have a doll in our hallway. This time, the sound did not come from the wind or the trees. It came from the doll. That's one of 5 stories that have genuine age-appropriate scares in the newest installment in the Mr. Shiver series. The simple text and full color artwork on each page will help young readers get just the right amount of scared. For more just right scares, check out the first 2 volumes in this series.
Baloney and friends going up. The gang is back. Baloney and his friends, Peanut, Biz, and Crabbit, are at it again in a bunch of short comic book style stories that play out like a hilarious sketch show. Baloney even attempts to write their own theme song. The stories range from a sneeze gone missing, which, spoiler alert, the punchline of that story is a fart, to the contemplation of a tree's entire existence up to this very moment in time. It's cover to cover silliness.
See the Dog, 3 Stories About Cats by David LaRocha and Mike Manuka. In this hilarious follow-up to See the Cat, you get 3 stories about Cat, who happens to be filling in for Dog who is sick. Once again, we see a humorous back and forth dialogue between the narrator and the main character, who happens to be a cat and not a dog. But that doesn't deter Cat, who finds their own way of doing things. Eventually, Cat has had enough of filling in for Dog. When Dog arrives, recommend this book to your Elephant and Piggy fans or your readers that will enjoy a playful book that likes to break the 4th wall. If you don't want the fun to stop, be sure to read the first book in the series, See the Cat, which of course is actually about a dog. Confused? Just read it and you'll find yourself diving into the funny antics of Cat and Dog. Sydney and Taylor Explore the Whole Wide World and Take a Flying Leap by Jacqueline Davies and Deborah Hawking. Friends Sydney and Taylor live together in a burrow under Miss Nancy's potting shed. Sydney, being a skunk, enjoys warming up at home by a cozy fire in their perfectly perfect burrow, while Taylor, who is a hedgehog, likes those things too, but sometimes gets really big ideas, like planning an expedition to explore the whole wide world, or learning how to fly. Sometimes his big ideas can get these 2 friends into big trouble, such as being hunted down for dinner, nearly getting run over by a car, or falling from great heights. But they also work together to find some big solutions to their problems. This fun new series about animal best buds, while reminiscent of Frog and Toad, gives new life to the creature companion genre. Look forward to more books in the series coming out in February. Sona Sharma, Very Best Big Sister by Chitra Sundar and illustrated by Jen Cotton. Meet Sona and her family. There's her parents, Amma and Appa, her grandfather, Fatah, her grandmother, Patti, her other grandmother, the president, who was once the president of a college, her good friend, Joy and Renew, her rickshaw driver, Mulai, and of course, her best friend and closest confidant, Elephant. Sona's family is large, loud, loving, and sometimes argumentative, but they're about to grow even larger since Sona is about to become a big sister. Sona isn't so sure that that's a good thing. She's not used to sharing for one, and she struggles with what it means to be a good big sister. As Sona's family prepares for the new baby, she learns that she'll help to get to choose a name for her in the upcoming naming ceremony. But can she pick the perfect name? And can she become the very best big sister? This is a great early chapter book for older siblings or as a window into cultural differences when it comes to growing families.
The Middle Kid by Stephen Weinberg. Being a middle kid can make it feel like you don't have a thing that makes you special. You're not the youngest or the oldest, the smallest or the biggest. This book gives us a glimpse into one typical day in the life of one middle child. Though he mostly gets overlooked and shortchanged, he finally gets the space and time to explore what makes him special. And for a moment, his siblings aren't all that annoying. Just for a moment. You're a Star, Lolo. This is the third book in the Lolo series. Lolo always has her own way of looking at the world. These books are set in South Africa. We get 4 more amusing misadventures of Lolo, her mom, and her grandmother. Things don't always go according to plan, but with some caring, ingenuity, and always a little bravery, Lolo and her family always make the best of it. And look for the next Lolo book coming this May.
Jojo McCoon's The Used to Be Best Friend by Don Quigley, illustrated by Tara Audibert. Bonjour, that means hello in Ojibwe. Meet 7-year-old Jojo McCoon's Azure. Jojo is Pembina Ojibwe and lives with her mom, her Kokam, grandmother, and her best friend, Mimi, a cat. Here she is, eavesdropping on one of their conversations while she searches Kokam's pockets for candy. Jojo also hopes for some human best friends, especially Fern. But how can you be sure when a person is your friend? Jojo is determined to find out. Just like Jojo, author Don Quigley is Turtle Band Mountain Ojibwe.
Too Small Tola by Atinuka and illustrated by Onyinye Iwu. Tola lives in the megacity of Lagos, Nigeria, in a run-down apartment block with grandmommy and her sister and brother. She is the youngest and smallest in her family, and the neighbors call her Too Small Tola, which makes her feel small. But Tola is smart, helpful, hardworking, and the best at math. When she puts her skills to work, she proves she is not too small to help grandmommy get correct change at the market, or to stand up to bullies, or even to keep an injured neighbor from losing his job as a tailor right before the Muslim celebration of Eid. Readers will be happy to join this small but mighty heroine in a story about ignoring others' perceptions and deciding for yourself what kind of person you will be. Egg Marks the Spot by Amy Timberlake, illustrated by John Clausen. Meticulous and organized, Badger is busy as usual doing important rock work when his lively housemate Skunk notices a missing specimen taken years ago by Badger's ne'er-do-well cousin. The memory of this betrayal is the catalyst for the pair to pack up and head out on a rock-finding expedition that ends with an amazing prehistoric discovery. Mysterious chicken appearances, camping mishaps, and the much too coincidental arrival of dangerous cousin Fisher are just the start of many unbelievable adventures in this fast-paced, suspenseful, and humorous Skunk and Badger sequel. In my favorite book of the year, Harry versus the First 100 Days of School by Emily Jenkins, illustrated by Pete Oswald. Harry Bergen Murphy is not excited to start first grade. He worries about strict teachers, rules, learning to read, mean kids, and even scary classroom guinea pigs. Yes, he thinks guinea pigs are scary. As the days add up, Harry makes friends, makes mistakes, and realizes asking for help and working with others are the way to go along the way to the 100th day of school celebration. From struggling with the silent E in reading and puking on his desk to becoming a guinea pig expert and a confident first grader, Harry is a compellingly realistic, complex kid that readers will relate to and cheer on.
Maybe Marisol Rainey by Erin Entrada Kelly. Marisol Rainey's summer is full of adventures, big and small, with her best friend Jada. From teaching themselves words in other languages to testing the claw machine at the zoo. But the biggest adventure of all? For Marisol, it's finding the courage to climb Pepina, the towering magnolia tree in her backyard.
Imagine your mom cuts your hair for the first time, right before you start third grade, right before the first day of school. To say that JD's haircut is bad would be an understatement. His hair was a jagged pile of mess. He looked like someone had put a bowl on his head before doing a lineup, and then a tiger came along and smacked the bowl off with its claws. In desperation, JD takes the clippers to his own head and discovers a hidden talent. Turns out he's a barbering natural. Now, every boy in school wants him to do their hair too. He's rich. But Henry Jr., a barber in town who cuts all the kids' hair, isn't going down without a fight. In the follow-up book, JD and the Family Business, school is just letting out for the summer, and JD's sister and her friend have an idea. Let's start a YouTube channel. They're already amazing at haircuts and hairstyles. All they need is to learn how to make videos. Can they go viral? This story models strategies for scripting short videos, perfect for young readers who may be inspired to try making their own. Author Jay Dillard is a barber himself. Like JD, he started cutting hair when he was just 10 years old. Both books blend skill building, entrepreneurship, and strong family values to give Black children visions of what's possible when they follow their passions and embrace their community. You may remember Ryan Hart from the 2020 Best of the Best title, Ways to Make Sunshine. The entire Hart family is back in Ways to Grow Love by Renee Watson with illustrations by Nina Mata, and they're growing by one. Ryan is about to become a big sister. In fact, Ryan has a lot to look forward to this summer. She finally gets to go to church camp too. But new adventures bring new challenges. The baby is taking forever to arrive. The baby is taking forever to arrive and mom is on bed rest. Dad is still working the late shift, which means he gets home and goes to bed whenever Ryan is waking up. And even though Ryan's been looking forward to church camp forever, when the time finally arrives, she is so worried about bugs, ghosts, and sharing a cabin that she wonders if she should go at all. Ryan's adventures are relatable and compelling. Each chapter in Ways to Grow Love serves as its own short story, but in all of them, Ryan faces new experiences as only she can, with a bright outlook and plenty of spirit.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Picasso by Remy Lai. In this colorful and expressive graphic novel, lonely 11-year-old Joe sees a dog carrying a basket in its mouth and follows it, amazed as it goes shopping all on its own. When the dog stops into the bookstore and kids in a summer art class mistake it for Joe's pet, she decides to play along in the hopes of making friends. She spends the summer trying to hide her lie and keep the dog, nicknamed Picasso by the art class, out of trouble with animal control. Of course, the deception grows out of control and eventually turns into a heated community-wide fight. Will Joe be able to own up to her lies and help bring the town back together? You're going to have to read it to find out.
Res Dogs by Joseph Bruchac. Nobody knows where the dog Malcolm came from. It just appeared one day and stood guard as if it knew that Malian and her grandparents needed its protection now that COVID-19 had forced them to shelter in place. According to her grandma Frances, it's not up to us when a dog like that appears and chooses you. It's not your decision. So after a routine summer visit to her grandparents' home on the Wabanaki Reservation turns into a long-term quarantine, Malian finds herself separated from her parents, friends, and school. Maintaining a connection with the world outside of the reservation becomes a challenge. And soon Malian finds herself looking to her new canine guardian and her grandparents' stories of the past to help her cope with her uncertain future. Written in prose inspired by a history of storytelling, this book about surviving the COVID-19 pandemic will have you reflecting on community, isolation, survival, and what it takes to overcome past and future hardships. I'd recommend this relatable book to help older kids and even adults, honestly, reflect on what living through a pandemic and the healing power of community.
Okay, now we're going to talk about we have our presentation for early informational books. We are excited to share these outstanding titles that help children explore STEM, historical and current events, biographies, and more. We are going to start with some fascinating and inspiring STEM books.
At this very moment, in a tiny hole underground, a creature no bigger than an inch is growing an entire colony within herself. When the weather warms, she'll lay these eggs, feed them, nurture them, and single-wingedly bring to life an entire colony of bumblebees. A queen bee may lay as many as 500 eggs in her lifetime. First, all female worker bees, then, in late summer, all males who mate with bees in other colonies, and finally, next season's queen bee. The life of the bumblebee, a humble creature that pollinates thousands of flowers in its short, months-long lifetime, is beautifully captured in these scratchboard illustrations by Claudia McGee and simple text by Liza Ketchum, Jacqueline Briggs Martin, and Phyllis Root. Back matter has additional information about furry bumblebees, pollination, and the bee's status on the endangered list. Bumblebee conservationists can also find tips for ways to save these endangered pollinators.
Next, we have a unique book about weather, Hear the Wind Blow by Doe Boyle, illustrated by Emily Park. The text of this book is a poem with each stanza representing the 12 categories of the Beaufort Wind Force Scale, which is a 0 to 12 scale from calm to hurricane level winds. Each page in the book offers a description of the way the wind feels and looks around us. It is filled with rich vocabulary and language, such as personification and onomatopoeia. The informative illustrations provide clues about the power of wind. The text and illustrations start with still air, then comes a breeze, eventually gusts and thunder. Each page builds excitement as the storm comes. Head to the back matter for information and a copy of the Beaufort Wind Force Scale, information on what wind is, a glossary, and a suggested reading list. I would pair this book with a storm-making activity with kids. Children can sit in a circle and start with silence, rub hands to represent the wind, pat thighs as the light rain comes, snap your fingers for rain showers, clap hands for heavy wind and rain, stomp feet and clap hands to represent thunder. Then go back to clapping hands, snapping fingers, patting thighs, rubbing hands, and then silence as the storm stops. I think this is a great book that merges poetry with science and math.
From one excellent STEM poetry book to another, The Last Straw, Kids vs. Plastics, written by Suzanne Hood and illustrated by Christiane Engel, details the threat of discarded plastic on our environment and introduces us to some young activists who are fighting for change to save our planet. Through a mixture of thought-provoking poetry and informational facts, the topic of plastic pollution is illustrated on each page and uniquely written in various poetry techniques and formats. I especially love the examples of children currently making a difference in our world, such as Xochi Guadalupe Cruz Lopez, who turns old plastic bottles into solar heaters, and the children in Guatemala who created eco-bricks from plastic bottles that are used in the construction of new schools. This book acknowledges the number of useful items we use that contain plastic, but offers real-world solutions on how we can lessen the impact of all the waste it creates. The back matter includes an author's note, timeline of the history of plastics and its projected future, and additional resources. One projection states that plastic is expected to outweigh all the fish in the sea and pile up 12 million metric tons in landfills by the year 2050. A dark prediction for sure, but this book offers a glimmer of hope that is led by these young environmentalists. Pair this with picture book Milk and Juice, a recycling romance by Meredith Crandall Brown for anyone who is interested in recycling and making the world a better place.
This next book is one of my favorites of 2021. It's got everything: a tropical setting, an underdog sports team, some incredible engineering by a group of kids, and a dramatic ending. Plus, it's all true. Floating Field, How a Group of Thai Boys Built Their Own Soccer Field by Scott Riley and beautifully illustrated by Nguyen Quang and Kim Lien, takes place in Koh Phanyi, a fishing village off the coast of Thailand. With limited space for a field, a group of kids would play soccer on a sandbar that only appeared twice a month during an extra low tide. When they decide to form a proper soccer team, they realize that practicing on a vanishing sandbar is not going to do the trick. The group of boys did what good engineers do. They saw a problem and made a plan to solve it. But building an awesome and totally functional soccer field using materials they found on their island that floats on the ocean with no help from adults is not where this story ends, though their floating field turns out very amazing. No, the story gets even better. Those boys decided to enter a soccer tournament on the mainland, where they end up going against some of the best teams in Thailand. Their town supports them with uniforms and cleats. They typically play barefoot. Well, as any good underdog story goes, this book has an exciting finish. Spoiler, being skilled at playing soccer barefoot as the tide comes in gives them a unique advantage as a storm floods the field in the semifinals. Along with being a story about engineering, drive, and teamwork, this is also a book about community. It's about how these boys worked together, won the support of their town, and inspired other kids on their island and around the world. The back matter includes more details, a note from the real-life main character, and more. Did I say this was a totally great read? This next book also shows us how curiosity and hard work can make for some incredible innovations. In June Almeida, Virus Detective, written by Suzanne Slade and illustrated by Elisa Paganelli, we see how a young girl's interest in biology and photography led to the discovery of the first human coronavirus. Despite not being able to afford to go to school after the age of 16, Almeida learned as she worked. She excelled at using an electron microscope and was able to get clear pictures of viruses. When a new virus was stumping other researchers, Almeida was able to isolate the virus and study it. She noticed it looked like other viruses she had seen in animals with a distinct crown. She identified the first human coronavirus, a breakthrough the scientists still rely on today. Her techniques for identifying the coronavirus were first used to identify SARS in 2003, and more recently, COVID-19. Throughout her career, June Almeida made several other important contributions to the study of viruses and medicines. With details of her early life, a timeline on her scientific discoveries, and even images of the coronavirus she first detected, this book is a timely addition to school and library collections and great for young researchers. This book can be paired with another timely and inspiring informational book about viruses. Thank You, Dr. Salk, the scientist who beat polio and healed the world. It's a story about a young boy who sees people afraid of catching polio and vows to find a cure. With a bold strategy, Dr. Salk made a breakthrough in vaccine technology and led the biggest clinical trial in history. Dr. Salk created a vaccine that helped save many lives. Plus, he insisted on not patenting the cure and not charging for the vaccine. He stated, "Who owns the patent on this vaccine?" Well, the people, I would say. There is no patent. Could you patent the sun? I love that quote, and I love both these books that help children learn about viruses and vaccines. Before we finish these STEM titles, I wanted to give a shout out to a few more titles that are on the list. Journey Around the Sun. Narrated by Halley herself, this informational book gives the awe-inspiring history and science of Halley's Comet that will leave readers wondering what the world will be like the next time the comet comes our way. The Shark Book. Steve Jenkins and Robin Page do it again. Just when you think you know everything about sharks, they add information about prehistoric giant sharks, sharks that can live to be 270 years old, How many sharks are killed by humans each year? A lot. And more, all with detailed illustrations and easy to read information. Secrets of the Sea is about the smart and inventive Jean Power, who thought outside the box. Well, actually inside the box. She invented the aquarium and used it to study marine animals, making groundbreaking discoveries and making sure her male counterparts didn't take all the credit. Pando. This is a book about a single creature that weighs more than 13 million pounds and covers more than 100 football fields. What? It's 47,000 quaking aspen trees that are all a single organism, which happens to currently be threatened by human activity. Check it out and maybe encourage some young conservationists. While it's certainly easy to be inspired by all these STEM books, knowing our history and where we come from can also inspire young minds. The next few books look at important historic events and the people behind them. We'll start with Stitch by Stitch, Cleve Jones and the AIDS Memorial Quilt by Rob Sanders, illustrated by Jamie Kristoff. This book tells the important, difficult, and ultimately empowering story of Cleve Jones and his journey of advocacy and friendship. After the assassination of Harvey Milk and the prejudice and hatred seen during the AIDS epidemic, Cleve wanted to do something to change the narrative. He and his friend Joseph Durant started the AIDS Memorial Quilt as a way to remember, a way to heal, a way to show love, a way to do something when it seemed nothing could be done. By weaving together a personal story with details of a movement for change, this book not only shares information about an important part in our country's history, it also provides an example of how it is possible to make change. With a discussion guide, glossary, mini biographies, a timeline, and more, this is a great resource on a topic not often covered elsewhere. Pair with Pride, the story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag by Rob Sanders.
Holidays are a time for celebration, and E.B. Du Bois' The People Remember does precisely that, as it explores the tenets of Kwanzaa while simultaneously summarizing the 400-year history of Africans in America. E.B. Du Bois thoughtfully walks through the first moments that Africans were forcibly taken from their lands and enslaved in the Americas, through gaining their freedom, fighting for civil rights, and arguing that, in fact, Black lives do matter. She pays tribute to Black inventors, authors, musicians, and politicians, all in beautiful verse that is simple, yet packed with symbols and layers that unravel more with each reading. Stunning illustrations by Love is Wise give life to this verse and draw readers in with their vibrant colors. Together, this creative team engages young readers in a history that is both difficult and beautiful, heart-wrenching and vibrant, all while being sensitive to younger audiences. Back matter goes into further depth on the principles of Kwanzaa, as well as a short history and timeline starting from 1518. The People Remember truly is a celebration of Kwanzaa, as well as the incredible history of the past 400 years. Pair this Coretta Scott King honor book with Your Legacy by Shelley Williams for a duo of powerful books that beautifully tells African American history for younger readers. We've all got heroes in our lives, people we look up to, admire, emulate. But what do you do when one of your heroes falls off their pedestal? Eliza Davis was faced with this conundrum when her favorite author, Charles Dickens, started including Jewish characters in his novels in stereotypical, derogatory ways. But instead of getting angry and giving up on her hero altogether, Eliza wrote him a letter to let him know how hurtful these characters were to herself and his other Jewish readers. How did Dickens take the criticism? Was Eliza able to persuade him to write more sympathetic Jewish characters? You could read Dickens' last completed novel, Our Mutual Friend, to find out, or find the answer more quickly in Dear Mr. Dickens by Nancy Chernin, illustrated by Bethany Stancliffe. Younger readers will see that people, even famous ones, are fallible, and that, indeed, even small unknown voices can speak up on behalf of justice, making a difference for generations to come. Pair the Sidney Taylor Honor Book with Strange Birds by Celia C. Perez, or No Voice is Too Small, edited by Lindsay H. Metcalf, Keela V. Dawson, and Jeanette Bradley, for units on justice and the courage it takes to speak up for what is right. And for more historical books on September 11th, Strong Women Speaking Out, and a very particular poop problem, check out these equally fabulous titles.
And now for some wonderful memoirs and biographies that give our young readers a chance to experience life through other people's eyes. The next two books on our list also appear on the 2021 Best of the Best Libros en español category. Be sure to check out that list on our website. Aurelie is a Dreamer, a story by Aurelie Morales, details our author's experiences growing up as a young girl in Mexico and her eventual reunion with her parents in New York. Author and DACA recipient Aurelie Morales describes her young life growing up in Mexico with her brother and abuela, far away from her parents who moved to America in order to create a better life for their family. Eventually, Aurelie is moved to New York to reunite with parents and her brother. Through colorful and vibrant artwork, illustrator Luisa Uribe brings to life Aurelie's difficult transition from abuela's familiar Mexican home to her tiny apartment in the bigger, faster, and noisier bustle of a big city. Although thrilled to be together with her family, Aurelie must navigate her new life that presents many challenges, including harassment at school, fear of deportation, and adapting to a new language. As the years pass, however, Aurelie is able to adapt and eventually considers America her home. After an eye-opening trip to Ellis Island, Aurelie recognizes the millions of immigrants who have paved the way for themselves and future generations to live the American dream. As a DACA dreamer herself, Aurelie is able to give life to this powerful and relevant immigration story, a story that is sure to resonate with the millions of immigrants who make up the fabric of our country. Back matter includes an author's note and glossary. Be sure to check out From the Tops of Trees and We Wait for the Sun for two more wonderful memoirs on our Best of the Best list. Now, from one dreamer to a group of twin brothers with big dreams, our next book focuses on two politicians who worked hard to make a difference for their community and who continue to fight for Latinx representation in our government. In Small Room, Big Dreams, the journey of Julian and Joaquin Castro, author Monica Brown and illustrator Morelli Ortega gives us a look at the Castro brothers' upbringing and how their mother and grandmother inspired them to accomplish their dreams. Their story begins in a small room that they shared with their grandmother in San Antonio, Texas. Inspired by both their grandmother's journey from Mexico to the United States and their mother's role as an activist in their community, the Castro brothers' path to a career in politics began at an early age. Drawing from each other's competitive drive, Julian and Joaquin excelled in school, whether it be through sports, academics, or student political groups. Overcoming challenges such as segregation, the brothers used their political knowledge to stand up for marginalized communities. Over the years, Julian and Joaquin Castro worked at the local, state, and national level, and their many accomplishments and roles include mayor, member of President Obama's cabinet, U.S. congressman, and presidential candidate, respectively. An informative and inspirational picture book biography about two twins who rose from poverty to become leaders for positive change in America. Author Gloria Amescu's lyrical biography, Child of the Flower Song People, tells the story of Luz Jimenez, an indigenous Nahua woman from Mexico who preserved her people's culture through modeling for famous authors, artists, and becoming a link to her people's past. As a young girl living in Mexico during the early 1900s, Luz learned that many customs of her native people, including how to grind corn, twist yarn with her feet, and weave beautiful, intricate looms. But when the Mexican Revolution came to her village, Luz and her family were forced to flee and begin a new life in a colonized world. Determined to preserve her threatened culture, Luz overcomes discrimination and hardship by becoming a model for paintings, sculptures, and photographers. Through this exposure, Luz shared her native language, stories, and traditions to artists and scholars who were interested in showing the true face of native Mexico. Illustrator Duncan Tonotillo's signature artwork brings the story to life with a mixture of vivid indigenous Mexican art with modern textures. The back matter includes an author's note, timeline, and glossary of native Nahua words used in the book, a wonderful title that shares an important window into the ravages of colonialism and the plight of the indigenous peoples of Mexico. This book also received the Pura Belpraise Children's Author Honor.
Imagine you're on a road trip in rural Florida, winding your way down the side roads when you see a young girl sitting on a gate post. "Don't you want me to go a piece of the way with you?" she asks. When you welcome her into your car, it's the early 1900s after all, she tells you folktales for half a mile or so, then hops out and walks back home again. Jump at the Sun by Alicia D. Williams is the story of this very girl, the unflappable Zora Neale Hurston. Her insatiable hunger for folktales led her to collecting them over the course of her lifetime and sharing them with everyone she came in contact with, including random travelers on the road. Readers will follow this plucky young girl as telling folktales as a young girl leads to telling the tall tale of being 10 years younger than she actually was, just so she could finish high school. Her passion for stories drove her to collect the folktales she heard growing up for all to enjoy, thus making her not only a novelist and folklorist, but also an anthropologist. Jacqueline Alcantara's illustrations capture the vibrancy and constant movement of Zora herself. There's not a static picture of her in the entire book, and will delight readers at every new spread. Back matter gives more details of Zora's life, as well as how the author first encountered her writings. Nothing was going to keep Zora back from jumping at the sun, as her mother encouraged her to do. And the world can be thankful that she did. Read this along with Virginia Hamilton's A Ring of Tricksters, or Little Red and the Very Hungry Lion by Alex T. Smith, for units on folktales or plucky female protagonists.
Be sure to check out these other biographies on our list, featuring amazing women breaking barriers and overcoming challenges to achieve greatness, including The Fearless Fights of Hazel Yi Ling by Julie Luang, which features the first Chinese woman to fly for the US military, and Nikki Nakayama, A Chef's Tale in 13 Bites by Jamie Michalak and Debbie Michiko Florence, which highlights the accomplishments of renowned and Michelin star chef Nikki Nakayama. Also on this list are the Coretta Scott King Honor Book, Nina, A Story of Nina Simone by Tracy N. Todd, illustrated by Christian Robinson, and Shaped by Her Hands, Potter Maria Martinez by Anna Harbor Freeman and Barbara Gonzalez, a radiant biography of Potter Maria Martinez as she follows along her journey in learning the ancient Tiwa tradition of claywork.
There were a lot of incredible informational books for younger readers published in 2021. We hope some will inspire the children in your life. Here are a few more. You can find more information on all the titles on our website by visiting chipublib.org/kidsbestofthebest. This actually concludes our presentation this evening. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to all the presenters. And of course, thank you, Liv and Josh, for organizing. Join us tomorrow at 3:30 to 4:30 for older informational books and older fiction books. Thank you all so much and have a great night.